First tonight, representatives from Sudan's warring sides, along with the UN's top aid official, are in Saudi Arabia for their first talks to try to reach an effective ceasefire. But fighting continues in the capital, Khartoum, where there are also reports that looting is becoming such a severe problem that it's causing shortages of basic supplies. Delegates from Sudan's army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces have said they would only discuss a humanitarian truce and not an end to the conflict. Talks began in Jeddah over the weekend, but it appears little progress has been made so far. More than 550 people have died in the fighting that began more than 3 weeks ago. It's led to more than 100,000 people fleeing Sudan to neighboring countries. Well, since the fighting began, the UN has registered tens of thousands of people crossing into South Sudan. Most of them are South Sudanese returning home. Aid agencies say it's adding to an already dire humanitarian crisis in the country, and getting new arrivals to their final destination is proving challenging.
If I had the opportunity, I would not have come back to South Sudan. I would have gone anywhere. But there were no roads. The heat is killing us, and some people have gone 4 days without eating, and there is no place to sleep, and children are getting sick.
Since the conflict broke out, we have registered over 25,000 people who have crossed, but the numbers are likely much higher, because we cannot register everyone, and many people are also crossing via informal border points. South Sudan is one of UNHCR's most underfunded crises already, and we are now mobilizing to support this new influx of individuals. So we are, of course, very concerned about that. This humanitarian situation, as I said, is severely underfunded already, and we urge the international community to not forget about South Sudan.
Well, Arise East Africa correspondent Mark Bichachi has been monitoring developments in the region, and he joins me now live from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Good to see you, Mark. So as the situation in Sudan fast deteriorates, the warring sides holding their first talks in Saudi Arabia, are there any reports of progress?
Well, the progress has been slow in informing the journalists and the various people trying to follow this particular story. All we know is that these particular talks are not direct talks. These two representative teams are not talking directly to each other. Instead, they're going through mediators. What we also know is the UN in charge of mobilization of resources to help needy places has been talking to them to emphasize the importance of that all-important humanitarian corridor that has been being asked for a while. Secondly, they are also asking for the ability to monitor ceasefires, even as ceasefires are declared. How do they monitor ceasefires and ensure that whoever breaks the ceasefire is held to account? But the generals and the representatives have so far, from what I have gathered, been very clear to say that these are not talks about peace. These are humanitarian talks. They are not ready to talk about the cessation of conflicts between them.
And we would be forgiven, Mark, for being pessimistic after seeing reports suggesting that the leader of the RSF, General Hemeti, has said he's determined to either capture or kill the army leader, General Burhan. I mean, with that kind of sort of background, it's hard to see how these negotiations will be the basis of a ceasefire.
Indeed, it is the same with General Burhan, because his side of the story is to say that these rapid support forces are rebels against the army. They have mutinied against the army, and he will not rest until the rebels are quashed. So we are seeing an escalation of the war of words between the two. What is sad is also they are not taking into consideration what the Sudanese people want. The Sudanese people wanted an end of military rule, but they are pretending, and if you look at the messaging they're pretending to be protectors of the Sudanese revolution, when in reality they're protecting their military economic complex that they've been using to subjugate the people of Sudan for years.
So basically, the fighting is continuing, both sides claiming successes. The country now effectively in a state of civil war. And we're hearing, Mark, reports that from Khartoum, which suggests that looting has become such a problem that it's causing shortages of basic supplies. So in effect, I mean, the longer this war goes on, the further Sudan slides into anarchy.
Absolutely, Charles. What we've seen is looting. We've seen I've seen images of a meat factory that has not only been looted but burnt down. Many different food distribution points say they have received cargo that has also been looted by knife-wielding goons. At the same time, you're quite right that the fighting continues, especially in the twin city of Durman, which is just across the Nile from Khartoum. We are also seeing intensified fighting in Darfur, but also around the presidential palace, which has been occupied by the RSF. So the people in Sudan are facing two dangers. One is two military powers that are refusing to accept and recognize the ceasefire, and also rogue entities within the cities who are robbing and pillaging businesses, and also homes have been attacked. And also looming large as a specter in the horizon is the militant tribal-based groups, especially in the region of Darfur, who are rearing their heads again, looking for a chance to spark that age-old conflict between Arab-speaking and non-Arab-speaking Sudanese. So this is a situation that is escalating even as talks are going on.
Yes, and I was going to ask you, Mark, what's the role of the international community in this conflict? Because, I mean, on the one hand, these talks are brokered by Saudi Arabia and the US, as we understand it. But on the other, we also know that some countries are backing one side or the other in this war. I mean, are they all united in wanting a ceasefire?
Well, the countries, especially around Sudan, are not united. Egypt, for example, has said that the best outcome they expect, even though they termed it a Sudanese problem, they have said that they expect that the military should reign over people who are rebelling against it, referring to the RSF. Again, at the same time, we've seen the RSF being linked to the Wagner group among the Russians. We've seen the UAE also being pointed to have taken sides. So the international community, in as much as they're unified in calling for peace and an end of cessation, they are not neutral by any stretch of the imagination. Surrounding countries have chosen sides, and these sides might actually escalate the war, given that each general will feel that he has enough support to stand his ground. So diplomatically, it is calling for peace, but at the same time, we know that these two generals have spent a lot of time making friends in the Arab League, making friends across borders to ensure that a moment like this, when it came, those friends would come to each general's aid.
Mark, thanks very much indeed. Mark Bichachi is Arise East Africa correspondent, and he was talking to me there from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi.